Today by an expert in obviously we're going to talk about Jessica and what makes her an expert. We're going to We're going to talk acquisition strategies, some good to knows, those pro tips that everybody needs, different ways to build rapport, and then we're also going to cover some high level stats so you kind of have a benchmark maybe to measure yourself against. Jessica, anything I missed? Anything you want to cover?
Nope, all sounds good.
All right, excellent. So let's go ahead and move on here. Jessica, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you grew up in a family of lawyers, right? You've been working here at Marketing 360 for about 3 years, and you're currently working with some different attorneys and law firms, right?
That is correct.
All right. So what makes you an expert? I mean, growing up around a family of lawyers, you must have learned a couple of things, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely certain jargon in a way that that everyone speaks. And then, I currently work with several attorneys, and they're doing really, really well. So
awesome. Well, excellent. Good. Let's go ahead and jump in. Let's talk about kind of the typical client profile. So let's move on to that slide there. Walk me through this. Walk me through what we're going to be discussing with this. I know from a client perspective or from maybe a lawyer perspective, we want to talk about what the client looks like from your area of practice, kind of how to identify what different people are looking for, how to identify the best type of customer, things like that. So walk me through this slide here and kind of how you as an expert identify the best kind of demographic to go for.
Sure, absolutely, Brandon. So your typical client profile is really going to depend on your area of practice. It's going to vary pretty greatly. For example, elder law, your typical client is going to be 55 years of age plus, whereas like criminal defense and DUI, it's typically going to trail off at 55. Kind of on average, though, with the accounts that I've managed, average demographic is about 25 to 60, pretty evenly split between male and female. Typically, clients are going to have an immediate need. Generally, someone that knows they need a lawyer is going to need them pretty quickly. There are some areas of practice, though, that are a little less immediate. So like elder law, wills and probate, where your client is going to shop around a little bit more.
So kind of what we're thinking here is that depending on even just the type of legal counsel that you provide or the service that you provide, some clientele, and I think we would probably say from an elder law perspective, they're not really doing a lot of shopping, right? They may be educated prior or at least have heard about what they need. So they kind of go to that first person, whereas other ones, maybe they're looking for a better rate, better price, someone closer to home, things like that.
Correct.
All right. And then obviously, like you had said, just sometimes it's that urgency, right? If you're working with somebody, and you're working with, like you said, the defense or criminal or something like that, it's probably a higher urgency than there are from an elder law perspective.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So you definitely want to consider that in your marketing as well. What's the urgency there? And I think we're going to talk about that on some of our other slides about the difference between needing to get phone calls or leads versus emails, and how you need to understand as the business owner, as the lawyer, what type of urgency or what type of best case scenario you need to be working with in order to get those conversions and get those leads. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to our next slide. We're going to talk about the new client acquisition. Jessica, take it away.
All right. So typically when a new client is coming to you, they're going to email or they're going to call in for a consultation. So of course, that being said, in the digital space, you need to be on page 1 of the search engine's results page. So PPC or pay-per-click, SEO, search engine optimization, or maps listings are are really essential for making sure that when somebody is looking for you, especially when it's an urgent need, that they're finding you right away. And if you have PPC, SEO, and maps all working together, you're taking up more real estate on page one, and therefore you look a little bit more credible there. So you definitely want to optimize these channels, and it's going to improve your results over time. And believe me, it does take time, but it's absolutely worth it, as you can see by that graph there.
So walk me through a little bit the difference in the different channels and where we see the importance coming from, pay-per-click versus search engine optimization and that maps listing. Where do you generally focus your efforts in the beginning? And then what does that look like over time, kind of as you're optimizing and you're growing a campaign?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, we want to make sure that you're showing up on maps when people are looking for you, whether it's a new client or it's a client that's coming in to meet with you. Making sure that they can find where you're located so they can come in for those meetings is essential. Then I would say a really robust pay-per-click campaign is going to be critical, because you want to make sure that right away you're at the top of the page when people are searching for you. SEO is equally important, but it is a long-term strategy, and it is something you need to really build upon over time to build out your digital equity. But really, first and foremost, making sure that you are at the top of the page immediately with those paid search campaigns.
And I'm sure in the beginning, and you've probably seen this quite a bit, would you agree that the costs from a paid perspective are generally higher in the beginning while these other channels are kind of ramping up? Like you said, they do take time.
Significantly higher.
Yeah.
Attorneys have some of the highest cost per click for PPC campaigns.
All right, good to know. So we definitely want to talk about different ways that you can reduce those costs, different ways that you can optimize multiple channels so that you're able to get the clientele and the service or the leads that you need by utilizing the different services instead of just putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, Jessica, talk to me a little bit about how some of these other programs out there like LegalZoom or those have kind of impacted the industry. Do you see that and your attorneys, your clients are competing against them a lot? Is it similar keywords, or do you generally find that what you're going for is more of that long tail people that are a little bit further down in the funnel, maybe not just looking for documents?
So what I have found is companies like LegalZoom is they're typically going for a different type of clientele than my clients are going for. Typically, people who are looking at things like LegalZoom are a do-it-yourself type of person, and they're hoping to just get some paperwork that they can do themselves. The people that are searching on Google for a qualified lawyer to represent them are generally going to be a different clientele, because they know that they need that representation. And therefore, DIY paperwork isn't going to be very beneficial.
Excellent. There you go. Good to know. Let's move on to our next slide. We've touched on this just briefly about the cost of pay-per-click and things like that, but you've got a couple of different tips here, tips and tricks to get the conversion rate up and the cost per conversion down.
Yeah, absolutely. So with those PPC ads, because it is so expensive, I generally A/B test click-to-call ads versus text ads. Generally speaking, click-to-call ads are going to be a more efficient use of your budget, because those are going to be the people who are ready to make the call, ready to make that contact with you. So they have a higher intent to hire. That said, there are some cases where we can do a little bit more in-depth targeting with text ads than we can with click-to-call. And so in that respect, it makes sense to use those text ads. But definitely A/B test text versus click-to-call, because that's where you're going to find that sweet spot that's bringing you in those good leads, bringing your conversion rate up while reducing your cost per acquisition.
And I would say there's probably a time of day or a day parting aspect to that as well. If you're maybe at work or at the office, filling out a lead form is a lot easier. Whereas if you have the time, then making the phone call is a lot easier, because like you said, they're in that hiring mode right then. They want to talk to someone. They've got time right now, versus filling out a lead form. Maybe they don't have time right now and they need some follow up a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to make sure that your click to call campaigns are only on during your business hours. Otherwise, people are getting an answering machine and then you have to follow up with them. And so chances are you're going to lose that person because a lot of people don't answer the phone when you call back. Whereas the lead forms are definitely good to run during those after hours times, or I'm sorry, the text ads, so that people can go to the website and fill out those forms during after hours are going to produce better results.
I would say from my own experience, I can use myself as a case study here. I think I'm kind of in the average. If I don't recognize the phone number, I don't pick it up. So if I've called someplace and if they're lucky enough that I've left a message, because I don't generally do that either. You want my business, you'll pick up the phone. Now, if I'm not, even if I do leave a message, if you call me back, the likelihood of me picking it up, one, it's obtrusive, right? I might be doing it in the middle of something. I might be at the office. So it's not the right time for me, versus when I called the first time was a great time to talk to me. And then I'm just not really going to answer the phone. You leave me a voicemail, I may not listen to that for hours, and I've probably moved on to something else. So I love that. Day part them and make sure that your click to call ads are not running overnight, or at least, like you said, outside of business hours. Great point. All right, let's go to our next slide here. We're still talking about how to acquire new clients, but now we're going to talk a little bit about the search engine optimization and how you can utilize that to drop your cost per acquisition. Jessica, like you said, costs, especially paid costs for lawyers and anybody kind of in the legal industry, it can seem exceedingly high. But there are different ways, there's different strategies and tools that you can use to bring those costs down. So let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So SEO, or search engine optimization, is really critical to lower that cost per acquisition, because those clicks are free. Now, it takes time, it takes money to build up your SEO, but it's definitely worth it, because as you can see from this slide, this particular case study is putting in $300 a month towards SEO work, and has been for a long period of time, but now they are getting almost $10,000 in free traffic to their site because we've really built out a robust SEO program for them.
So let's talk about that SEO strategy just a little bit. Obviously, SEO is it's a word that's thrown around constantly. And most people know it stands for search engine optimization. But what does that mean, especially for our viewers right now in the legal industry? What does search engine optimization really look like? What's something tangible that we can kind of grab onto?
Yeah, absolutely. So search engine optimization is just making sure you have really rich, keyword rich, and relevant content on your site, so that when search engines crawl your site, they see that you have all of this information regarding your area of practice. So when someone's looking for an attorney or lawyer in your area of practice, those search engines go back and say, okay, this website has a lot of relevant, fresh content, keyword rich information. So they're most likely to have the best answer for this person. So that you're going to get a higher ranking organically over time by making sure you have a lot of relevant, keyword rich content on your site. So
really what you're doing is you're proving to Google that they can trust you with their customer, right? This is Google's, this is Google's world. We all just pay to live in it. So if viewers or searchers or visitors are all Google's customer, right? Because they are, and a massive percentage of Google's revenue comes from clicking on ads and that revenue, they need to ensure that when people do click on something that is not a revenue driver, like an organic rank or an organic listing, that the consumer, the visitor, has a great experience with that Google provided the information, the website they were looking for that was relevant to their search. Because otherwise, what's going to end up happening is that search, that visitor, they may go elsewhere. They may have to search again. They may kind of give up on their search. So they may have just decided, man, Google just doesn't know what they're doing. They may check out Bing. They may check out, something else and go to those other, the different search profiles. So Google is very particular about how it ranks websites. Now, obviously there's no emotion in it. It's all algorithmically based, but like you said, by ensuring that you have great high quality content that makes it easy for Google to not only understand what your site's about, but then also provide great relevance and great value to a visitor when they get there, that's how you really increase your ranking.
Absolutely.
Perfect. All right. And if we've got any questions that come up here, please be sure to just chat them out to us. We'll try to answer those as much as we can. And in fact, it looks like we do have a couple of questions. So question number one here, Jessica, this is for you. Do law firms need to create a Google My Business account? Is that valuable for them?
Absolutely. If you have a brick and mortar location, whether you're an attorney or law firm or any other business with a physical location, you absolutely want to create a Google My Business account.
There you go. Short and sweet. We've got another question from Wookie Feet. Thanks again for tuning in. Any advice on how to look serious on search engine results, not like a shady car salesman on a TV commercial? So I think that's a pretty easy one to answer. You've got to provide value. Right? If you're going to be a used car salesman on TV, you're selling something, and that something that you're selling doesn't really provide a lot of value. It may fill a need, but there's not a lot of value there. In my opinion, one of the greatest things that you can do is ensure that what you're producing and how you are producing this content is something that you yourself would want to see in your own feed. Now, if you're the kind of person that is just absolutely loves clickbait and loves to click on things like that, then you know what, maybe you're in the wrong business, because you need to make sure that any of the content that you're producing is something that you yourself would want to consume. Make a commercial that you would want to watch and you wouldn't want to skip. Write a blog that you would want to read and you wouldn't want to just pass over. That's where you get that value organically. And it looks like we've got one other question here from Bithel's Garage. Jessica, you may be able to help with this. What are some tools and tricks to identify some different keywords that you can target? Oh, Jessica, I think we lost you. I think you've dropped off. You might have lost your internet there. All right, we're going to bring Jessica back and try to get her internet fixed, so she'll be back online here shortly. But to answer your question from Bithel's Garage, different tools and tricks that you want to use to identify different keywords. There's a couple of different pieces that you can utilize. One, obviously, is just the keyword research tool within Google. So those are some different things that you can use just to identify keywords. One of the things that I particularly like to do, honestly, is just go ahead and search. Just search for something. You can identify some different keywords that are being used, and if it's relevant, based on the kind of ads that show up. What may be relevant, you believe, to your industry and your business, you may find has just kind of been taken over by a different product or service or a different type of search type. So I always recommend Google it for yourself and see what kind of content comes up. Now, we did do another webinar. We've done some other videos related to how to identify keywords and some different tools and tricks for that. So I'll link to that after we go off the air here. And it looks like we've got another couple of questions here. What are some general ways to build value for these websites? In my opinion, and this is for me, I'm a big researcher, right? So I want as much information as I can possibly get. The more information that I can have, the more confident I am in the questions that I'm going to ask. I feel more educated. I feel a lot safer. It's something that I want to move forward in. There's the saying, if you can't describe it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it. And I've always found that if a website is able to describe something complex to me in a way that I can understand, especially if I have no real understanding of the industry, I just know I need it, then I'm much more likely to work with that kind of company. Accountants are a great example of this. Accounting, not my skill set. Those kind of finances and numbers, I'm just not interested. So if they can describe something to me or answer questions that I'm looking for, then very easily I'm going to trust them a lot more. And the same thing goes for attorney websites and lawyer websites and things like that. So by doing that, by providing great value, answering some questions in a way that people that do not understand the terms, they don't understand the technicality and the legalese, we're all friends here, we can call it that. If they don't, if your website is all legalese, you're going to lose out on clientele. Now, there may be a difference if you're a commercial, high power attorney and you're working with other attorneys, and those are your leads. Then you need to bring up the level of communication to where it reaches that professional level and kind of speaks to them. So final question, and then we'll go ahead and move on here. Do you think Bing search is on the rise, and do they bring in clients? Bing still accounts for 20, 30% of the market, depending on what kind of industry you're in. So I don't see any reason why you would ignore Bing. Now, one, you'll kind of rank there by accident if you're focusing on ranking organically for Google. That's just kind of how it works, right? You optimize for one search engine, you kind of start ranking for the other one. Now, Bing ads you may find are going to be less expensive in certain industries than maybe you'll find on Google. Google obviously dominates the market, so there's more competition, so costs are higher. Bing has a smaller portion of the market. The ad campaign may be a little bit more complex to run simply because it's just a different interface. Most people aren't used to it, but there could be value there. Now, the trade-off is that there's very limited volume. Now, you may just find yourself and say, everybody in here is working great, and this industry is perfect, and my geographic location is perfect, and Bing is killing it. Well, awesome. That would be fantastic. But I think most times, Bing has some value, but you're going to end up running into the situation where you'll lack volume. So I would recommend going for both. I think having both is pretty valuable here. So Jessica is still trying to come back. I think we're having some internet trouble here, but you know what? We're going to go ahead and move on and give her a chance to come on back. So just a couple of things that we want to keep in mind here. You're going to get a lot of tire kickers. Again, this goes back to one of those questions where specifically, if you're not providing value or you're not explaining something in a way that a layman can understand, you're going to get a lot of tire kickers that they just want more information. So if you're offering deals or offering different or using, I guess what I want to look for, if you're using different calls to action like free consultation, who doesn't want a free consultation? Especially if I have questions that I haven't been able to answer, I am absolutely going to eat up an hour of your time consulting me, free consultation. So definitely keep that in mind. Your call to action or your incentive, you want to make sure that you're aware of the potential cost to you. Now, I love this. We keep getting more questions. So this is perfect. What's the best on-site SEO practice for a business that wants to target multiple cities? Excellent question. And there's a couple of different ways to think about this. Now, originally, when Google kind of first really came on the scene and such like that, a lot of larger corporate sites, corporate companies, they would build out websites for each specific location. So in our case, it would be Marketing 360. Fort Collins, Colorado.com, Marketing 360, Denver, Colorado.com, Marketing 360, Lancaster, Ohio.com, something like that. That doesn't really provide a lot of value, right? Because that is just hundreds and hundreds of websites or a bunch of different landing pages all to maintain. That's not going to provide a lot of value because you've got a lot of different domains too. One domain or one site could be ranking really, really well, and then the other domains not so well, and they're not able to pull from one another. Now, what I like to do is I like to build out individual landing pages that are specific to that kind of search. So if you're servicing different areas, you can create landing pages that specifically address that service area that you service, and then you can run ads that are geo-targeted to that area that direct to that landing page. And I believe Jessica is back online. Jessica, are you back with us?
I'm back.
Welcome back. I hope you had an adventure.
I sure did.
Excellent. We've been answering questions over here, and we've had some great ones, so keep them coming. Happy to answer these questions, but let's go ahead and move on to our next slide, things to keep in mind. We already talked a little bit about the tire kickers and using the being cautious about what types of deals you're offering. Jessica, maybe you have some suggestions outside of free consultation. What are some suggestions for good call to action ad copy?
So good call to action ad copy. I really have found if you don't want to get those tire kickers is really just calling out what makes you I don't want to say better, but what makes you better. So years of service, any awards and accolades. But again, that kind of leads into the fact that you cannot make any claims of being the top or the best or an expert, specialist, specialized. Those are all terms that generally across the board, regardless of what your state bar association says, are going to be completely prohibited. But you can use the verbiage like AV rated. Let's say you're AV rated with Martindale-Hubbell. But again, you can only use that if it's related to the area of practice in which the award was given. But really, again, kind of like we were talking about the legal Zoom versus the type of clientele that our lawyers or our attorneys are looking for, is that they're looking for someone who is going to win their case, who has a lot of experience, who has the credentials to back them up. So that's always going to be a good call to action. And then just, with the call only ads, the call us now. One of my clients does say, we return calls same day. And that seems to work particularly well also, because I think there's kind of a stigma with law firms or attorneys that they're too busy for you. So letting them know that you have the time for them is also a really great thing to call out.
I think that's an excellent point. If you can identify kind of a weakness in the industry or a weakness in your competition, you can exploit that in your ads. And like you said, maybe in this client's particular region, attorneys and law firms just don't call people back. Maybe they are swamped. Maybe there's room for more growth and there's just too many clients and not enough people to service them. But by being able to take that and turning it into a positive, we return calls same day. You never have to worry about it. And then following through on that, a lot of value. Before we move on to our next slide, we've got another question. Is it a good idea to market or advertise your hourly rates or your fees? Jessica, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. In most cases, it's actually a bad marketing practice, or is even prohibited to put your hourly rate in your ad copy.
How about outside of the ad copy? What about on the website? Does that make much of a difference?
I would recommend against it. I would say check with your state bar association as to whether or not your state allows it. Generally, it's considered a no-no, though.
That's very interesting. Now, I would say from a user perspective, from an end user, that's all I'm looking for, right? I look for price kind of before a lot of other things. I assume if I search for a service and you come up, that you probably provide that service, probably in my area. So now I want price. But that's very interesting to think about, if it could just be state regulations that don't allow you to do that, which right there could be an excellent landing page. We would love to provide you with pricing. However, the state board of Ohio says that for statute whatever, we can't do that for these reasons. It's a consumer protection act, something like that. But we would love to discuss our prices with you over the phone. Give us a call, or here's a lead form. That could turn into an incredible landing page and a great way to gather some of the that organic search. How much does a lawyer cost, things like that, and then you're just earning more clients that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, if your state allows it and you want to, you can. But generally, I would steer away from it.
So you just gotta check with them first. And I know you got another note down here. Content and ads need to be reviewed to ensure compliant and correctness. And I think that kind of fits in with that question there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're having somebody else write your ads, you want to make sure that they are compliant.
Exactly. So if you're working with a marketing agency, even if you're working with us here at Marketing 360, you definitely want to be that second set of eyes. No one is going to know your business better than you do. No one's going to know your industry better than you do. There's a lot of experts out there. Obviously Jessica is one of them here at Marketing 360, but you still need to have that second set of eyes there just to ensure your own compliance. If you've got an intern or even an employee or another agency working for you, trust me, it'll save you some heartache. So always make sure that you've got that second set of eyes on there for the compliance.
Yeah, because ultimately, whether someone in-house, or an agency writes those ads, the attorney who is connected with those ads is ultimately the one who is held liable if there's a compliance issue.
Makes sense. You know, they got to have some skin in the game, so that's what they're going to be looking for.
Yep.
All right, let's change gears a little bit and move on to our next slide, talking about building rapport. This could fit a little bit in with what we were talking about building value and building quality on your website by utilizing landing pages, both for geographic areas and for your services. But this can also be a way that you can answer questions. We actually posted on our social platforms at Marketing 360 a couple of days ago, talking about how you can use questions from clients to build out lead form pages, to build out frequently asked questions pages, things like that, that just give you better organic ranking. And I think this fits right in here with that. So Jessica, talk to me a little bit about how a business or a law firm can build rapport and connect with a client before they even ever speak to them.
Awesome. And great point, Brandon. Answering these questions not only helps prevent people from just calling and asking questions that waste your time, but it also does add SEO value. So some questions to definitely answer on your website is, what is your area of practice? And what is your specialty within that practice? Again, you want to make sure that you don't say, I specialize in this. You can just say, these are the areas of practice that, these are the areas I practice. Definitely highlight any awards or recognitions. So if you're rated with Martindale-Hubbell, Avvo, Super Lawyers, any of those really well-known legal specialty review platforms and peer review platforms, definitely draw attention to if you have ratings or accolades from them. And then, of course, how many years you've been in practice. Experience really does matter. So highlight your accomplishments. If you've been practicing for 10, 15, 25 years, let people know that. It just adds value and lets them know that you know what you're doing. And then list any notable cases you have won. Now, again, this one is something you're going to want to check with your state bar association about, because in some states it's considered misrepresentation to say I've won all of these cases, because they feel that that is you falsely advertising that you will win their case. But in most cases, it's going to be allowed, and it's great to show that you have these notable cases under your belt, that you've had great results for your previous clients.
Great points. I love that. And anything you can do to build rapport with a client before they even connect with you, if you can offer some sort of value and answer a question or provide a resource or something like that, then that person is already connected with your business and there's a sense of loyalty there. So something to consider, if you can provide any type of resources, you know, without diving into the murky waters of providing legal advice, you know, anything you can do to answer those kind of questions and kind of build up some confidence is going to pay dividends in the end.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Let's jump over to our next slide here. Talk about some high-level stats, give you some benchmarks kind of to think about. Jessica, go ahead and break this down for us.
Sure. Just some high-level stats from accounts that I personally have worked with. Now, keep in mind, results are going to vary drastically because there's so many different areas of practice. There's so many different types of cases, and there's different hourly rates for all different types of attorneys. So your average sale per new client acquisition is really going to vary tremendously depending on, again, your area of practice, your credentials and experience, and what you're charging per hourly rate. Again, cost per conversion is going to depend on your area of practice. A lot of my clients, their cost per conversion is about $45 to $90 because through testing, we've got a really high conversion rate on their ads. Now, your results are probably going to vary pretty dramatically from that, but again, area of practice.
It shows you where you can get to, so yeah. I think that's a great point. Don't be discouraged in the very beginning because you may have conversion rates of $300, $400, $500.
Yes.
Or conversion costs could even be higher. So, while we're on these high level stats, that's something to consider. This is something that over years of practice and Jessica's expertise, she's been able to narrow these costs down to $45 to $90 per lead. Now, remember, that's per lead. not per signed on client, or new customer. So keep that in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So average conversion rate for my clients, all channels, all digital channels is about 11%. For my paid ads, it's about 33%. So about 33% of the people who are clicking on our ads or interacting with our ads are actually reaching out to my clients. But again, this is something that takes time and it takes some fine tuning. A/B testing those ads, making sure that you also have other channels going, your maps, your SEO. I don't typically recommend social media, but there are some instances where that is helpful. So all of those things working together are going to help get you a better conversion rate over time.
Excellent. Well, considering Google's average conversion rate is between 1% and 3%, I think 33% is a pretty excellent conversion rate to get to.
I would say so too.
All right. Well, we do have a couple other questions that have come up. One, can lawyers use customer testimonials or online reviews? Now, I know that you can use things like Avvo and things like that, but can you have those reviews on your website as well?
Again, that's going to vary by state. There are some states where it's considered misrepresentation to have testimonials, endorsements, anything like that on the website or in the ads, which is why it is really important to leverage those credible review platforms, Martindale, Hubble, Avvo, Super Lawyers, Google. So if you can't put them on your site, again, check with your state bar association. Definitely make sure that you are getting reviews, but you're getting them on the review platforms.
Makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And one other question that came up is, what is a good way to source backlinks? And I'll go ahead and take this one. If you are focusing on generating backlinks, you're focusing on the wrong thing. And I will say this constantly, and I'll say this, to as many people as want to hear it or need to hear it. There is very little value in hunting for backlinks. There can be incredible value in organically getting backlinks. But if you're going out and you're hunting for them, then you're missing the entire purpose. And the purpose of that is you will get backlinks organically by providing great content. That's the key. If your content is interesting, it's valuable, it's shareable, then you will get backlinks. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that your local area is kind of saturated with your website and your address. And we use local listing ads in order to do that. You want to make sure your maps listing is accurate. Those are all considered backlinks or citation backlinks. But going out and spamming forums or trading link for link, or even writing blogs or trading blogs back and forth with different rings, there's limited to no value there. And you can actually even hurt yourself in doing that, because Google's, their algorithms caught on and they know they know all that's going on. That's considered a black hat technique. So my advice to you, stay on the up and up, create great, valuable, shareable content, and you will get backlinks, just kind of as an accidental or a happy accident beyond that. So, but if you're just focusing on generating them yourself, you're missing the purpose here. Let's go ahead and move to our next slide. This is Jessica, I think you threw this in here, an example site. Walk me through this. What am I looking at here?
So what you want is just to make sure when you have a landing page that you have a really good landing page like this example here. Ways for someone to get in touch with you, a really good call to action, big firm experience with small firm attention. Again, letting people know that they are important to you. And really just strong calls to action, call us now or request a consultation. On the website, if you put free consultation, I think that's okay. You still will get some tire kickers, but as long as it's not in the ad copy, it will reduce that a little bit.
Just even looking at the site myself, big firm experience with small firm attention. I love that. You've got call us right there. There's the number. And then you've got it up in the upper right-hand corner as well. Free consultation. If I'm not ready to call, maybe I want to set something up. Awesome. And then right in the very beginning, we've got that Tucson family lawyer and then practice areas. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So you can see right on this, site, right on the landing page, essentially exactly all the information that you need just to get started.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and jump to our next slide here. This is kind of an example from one of our clients talking about operating on all the different channels and how they correlate with each other. So Jessica, kind of walk me through this example here.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like what we were talking about earlier is it's really important to make sure you have multiple different channels that you're showing up on. So they do directly correlate with each other. So you want to make sure you have your paid search, your SEO, your maps listing, retargeting if it's allowed. Most of the time it's not. Social media, if you are going to do social media, when you have a really 360-degree approach to your digital marketing, you're just going to see better results faster.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. All these channels feed into, everything feeds into itself, and they all feed into the different channels here, and they all kind of influence each other as well. We've even found at Marketing 360 that the more videos that are produced and the more things that we do on YouTube or on Facebook, the more things are actually increase on our organic traffic, which is very interesting. You wouldn't really consider that, but the more videos that we work with, the more organic ranking we get. So very interesting. So highly recommend as many channels as you can be on. Don't skip one. Obviously, you need all these to work together, especially if you're trying to bring down your costs and your cost per click. So let's go ahead and sum this up, Jessica. We're going to move on to basically our final slide here. Sum this up for me. If I am just jumping in and want to watch the last 5 minutes of this webinar, what do I need to know?
Awesome. In summary, really draw attention to your strengths and your credentials, years of service, anything that really makes you better than the next guy. Get those testimonials. Those are very important. If you can't put them on the site, on your website, make sure that you're getting them on those credible review platforms, and make sure they're the credible ones, because that's what really counts. Your paid advertise or PPC or pay-per-click advertising is really going to be your best bet. Again, A/B test between click-to-call and text ads to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. Retargeting is great, but it is hit or miss. So again, check and make sure that it's something that you're allowed to do. SEO is critical to reducing your cost per acquisition of new clients. So make sure you're not neglecting that. You want to keep putting fresh, relevant content on your site. And then social media marketing, not something that we really touched on because it's really only effective for really, really high cost keywords, such as mesothelioma lawyer, which last time I checked was around $500 to $600 per click, or class action lawsuits, which are just incredibly expensive to bid on per click. And you just need to draw awareness. That would really be the only time I would recommend that. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, excellent. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and educate myself and everybody on different marketing techniques for attorneys and lawyers. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For everybody watching, you can again access these slides at m360.us/4E0A. Of course, we have additional resources at youtube.com/marketing360. We do these webinars every Wednesday at 1:30 Mountain Time. And if you would like to work with us or learn more about Marketing 360, please go to marketing360.com/start. We'd love a chance to talk to you. We'd love a chance to consult with you. And hopefully at the end of the day, we get to partner together. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and happy marketing.